Do you have questions about your health? Do you need to find out what's keeping you from feeling your absolute best? If so, your intuition has guided you to the right place. I am Dr. Charlize, and welcome to the Art of Healing podcast community. In this podcast, we explore all topics in health and wellness, from Reiki to functional medicine, energy medicine, chakras, and meditation. Join me every week for fresh new episodes that highlight healers, various healing modalities, and choose this as your opportunity to find what healing works best for you. If you want to learn more about me, simply Google at Dr. Charlize. Enjoy. Hello, and welcome back to the Art of Healing podcast. I'm Dr. Charlize, and thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. I am very fortunate to be welcoming a special guest for today's podcast interview. We will be getting to know Dr. Maggie Yu. Dr. Yu is a physician, a family practice specialist, and a functional medicine practitioner, certified, who is highly respected in family practice and graduated from UCLA School of Medicine. She's been in practice for 25 years. Dr. Yu is an author, a mother, a teacher, a speaker, and a thought leader. Dr. Yu has become a force to be reckoned with in the world of functional medicine, and her journey has been anything but ordinary. Dr. Yu's journey started with developing a mysterious autoimmune disease after having a baby. After being diagnosed at the age of 36, Dr. Yu suffered several debilitating medical issues, including fibromyalgia, early menopause, Hashimoto's, chronic pain, depression, TMJ, and mixed connective tissue disease. After battling her own debilitating health challenges, she recognized limitations of conventional medicine. This is what set her on a profound journey that became a personal experience that now has shaped the way that she works with the patients. She has developed the Transform Protocol, which is an online autoimmune chronic disease program which comprehensively addresses disease at the root cause. The groundbreaking protocol has not only transformed her life, but has also proven to be a beacon of hope for countless others suffering from similar afflictions. During our interview, I'm going to be asking Dr. Yu some questions about how she navigated the health system, what brought her to where she is now, and most importantly, what the rest of us can do if she had trouble navigating the health system as a family practice physician. All right, let's get started. Well, Maggie, it is so nice to meet you. I'm so honored to have you on my podcast and to introduce you to my community. Thank you so much for coming on today. Wonderful. I was reading about you and your journey. Where I wanted to start, which to me has just been the most profound thing, is that before you became an author and a teacher and a thought leader, you family medicine.
Yeah.
You experienced your own health challenges and
Yeah.
you had to look outside of conventional medicine. I'm interested to know that a physician, what happened that you could not find the answers and the healing you needed in conventional medicine?
I would say that it mirrors many of my colleagues, probably including you as well. I would say that we as physicians actually, any teacher becomes the best teacher in our area of greatest suffering. So what happened to me was that, I loved being a family physician. I was a wonderful family physician. I was really good at it. I was a workhorse. I was one of those people that I would see 20, 30 patients every day, go home and chart 6, 7 hours and come back and do it and come at me. I became medical director of our clinic. I was teaching young family physicians and managing them in a large practice or a large medical group. So after the birth of each child, and as we talk more about autoimmunity, you'll see why this is a pattern. After the birth, during my pregnancy and after the birth of each child, I developed more and more chronic health mystery symptoms that I couldn't answer. I didn't even know what they were. And it culminated so that I had my first child at 30, my second at 33. And each postpartum event brought me to my knees, and I didn't fully recover from either. I had C. diff infection, I had hair loss, weight gain, I had depression, brain fog, ADD symptoms, depression, anxiety, and it didn't get better. And it culminated at the age of 36. I went into full blown early menopause where my FSH level came back at the level of 80. We all know what that means as physicians. So I was in medical menopause at the age of 36, which is not common, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I was being told by myself and my colleagues, and what I told other people is, oh, you don't need to test your hormones. If your FSH is 80 or if you haven't had your periods for a year, your hormones we know are low postmenopausal, so why bother? So I started getting doors shut at me with symptoms of chronic pain, fatigue, brain fog, ADD, depression. I mean, I felt damn suicidal. And it got to the point where my health had taken such a blow that it affected my career. I mean, I lost my job, I lost my mind, and I lost my marriage.
Whoa. Wow.
And when you are there, you don't have a choice. I got to the place where I realized doing anything different would be better than where I was at.
Oh my.
And yeah, and that to me was what really pushed me outside the box, because operating as a peak physician, peak performer, trainer, teacher in that realm, I was in a system that didn't answer the mysteries around my own health and own health symptoms and the complete devastation and decline of my professional and personal life and health. So it didn't provide me the answers. It became my greatest area of suffering. It became my charge and my mission. I had to save my own life. And that's what triggered me to say, hey, you know what? I'm really smart and I could put all my MD smarts. How can I apply that to learn maybe 100 other tools to deal with this very difficult to solve chronic health array of symptoms? So I put it together and I started to really look outside the box everywhere, anywhere, all the time, so I could figure out how to save my own life. That's how this started.
So for the listeners, because most of my community aren't physicians, but yeah. I guess what's kind of struck me is that just, for the listeners to know that as physicians, when we go in to see a doctor, it's a mixed bag. Sometimes we come in with an advantage as far as we can speak the language. We can speak the language to our practitioner. I know in my own experience, when I've had to see another specialty, it depends. Sometimes I can't speak their language. Sometimes I'm just kaput, and I'll just say, treat me as you would anyone else, because I can't think like that. So I guess what I wondered in your journey, and you said you were getting doors closed on you. So typically when you're a physician, you say, hey, I'd like to check my hormones, and you were being told no.
You don't need to. You're not having any periods. Your FSH is 80. We know you're in menopause, so it would be postmenopausal normal.
At 36?
That's what was gynecology. My colleagues, these were my friends.
What? And so what were you just supposed to walk off and be like, cool?
This is 20 years ago, all right? I mean, I am 50. I am 54. This was 18, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so doctors don't test hormones. Even now, women and men and children are getting that hormonal door slammed in their face when they're dealing with tons of complicated health symptoms and mental health symptoms. And to me, that's one of my battle cry is, holy hell, do we need as a medical profession, which still hasn't happened, to learn the difference, what is actually what I mean when I say hormone balance versus, hormone replacement therapy or just a denial or medical gaslighting. Right. Yeah. So for me, this whole idea around hormone balancing is really critical. At the time, Oprah Winfrey did an interview with Suzanne Summers, and Suzanne Summers I think she wrote a book, and it was all about bioidentical hormones, IVs, and this and that and people thought she was nuts, and people thought Oprah was nuts for even promoting this. Mm-hmm. And so it was almost as if there was like a waging war battle going on at that time between everybody should be on Premarin and fake progesterone, fake hormones and horse hormones. Oh, now all these studies are coming out saying that's the devil. And then Suzanne Summers and Oprah coming out saying it's all about bioidentical hormones and every grandma should be on high doses of bioidentical hormones. There was like a waging battle. So it was like a huge taboo. And so for me, even as a physician, to go ask for my hormones to be tested, it was as if I was asking for voodoo or taboo medicine.
Wow. So, I hear what you say about, this happened some time ago, but I don't actually feel that it's changed in conventional
That's the
medicine.
point. That is the point.
Yeah, I don't think it's
Nothing has
changed that
changed
much.
there.
No,
Nothing has
no,
changed there.
no.
And so the amount of misunderstanding around hormones between doctors, and patients is astounding. And I talk about this in the book in the chapter about hormones, is that people don't realize that there's little to no true hormone experts out there that understand what hormone balance means. And for mental health, let's say whether it's ADD, depression, anxiety, brain fog, right? And every one of those symptoms that I talk about, and I deal a ton with long haul, POTS, mast cell activation, autoimmune diseases. But every single one of those symptoms have a basis in hormones and a lack of hormonal balance. And the problem is then people come from a podcast like this or reading the book and they say, well, then I need to go ask my doctor to get my hormones tested, or I need to get on bioidentical hormones. But the problem is there's a lack of true hormone experts, because I talk about following the money. It is actually it has been big businesses for natural and functional medicine doctors or just regular doctors, gynecologists, to say, I'm a hormone specialist. And what they really are is they're a hormone pellet mill.
Yeah. So I have been curious about that because I've had patients in and out of those programs, in and out.
Yeah.
And the part that has always confused me is that they're not necessarily better with their symptoms.
Correct. Getting bioidentical hormones, fake hormones, doesn't mean your hormones are balanced. And then the problem is the main type of hormones that people are getting is hormone pellets from quote unquote hormone experts or functional or naturopathic physicians. And the reason for that is following the money. Every time, let's say you're working with someone who's teaching you the skills, which is what we do. I teach people recognize what those patterns are, learn the skills to balance your hormones, get all the tools, of which maybe you need hormones, maybe you don't. Okay. But even if you did, it's very small amounts for balancing, just so you guys know. So the problem is that if you follow the money, like most doctors, and whether you're conventional or whether let's say you're a hormone expert and you're a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath, that insurance doesn't cover. Well, how do you make your money, right? You make your money by charging a lot for your visits, so it's time, or you make your money by sales of products and services that give you a lot of cash flow. And hormone pellets give a lot of cash flow. Yeah. So they're, hundreds, even $1,000 every time you go in to get hormone pellets. You got to go in and do it every 3-6 months, depending on what the regimen is. And so it's a recurring subscription cash cow for the doctor's office. And so a lot of practices, they don't want to spend time teaching you the skills or uncovering patterns. Why don't I just get every single person into a pellet mill where I can get a, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, somebody else who's lower wages, lower expenditure than hiring another physician or educator or true instructor, and just do pellets. So then people get on pellets and they get crazy ass high doses of these bioidentical hormones that in fact is causing more problems. Some people need what I call heifer doses of hormones. Okay. Most people don't. They're getting way too much hormones. And it can actually exacerbate the problem because hormones turn into other hormones and break down products. So we're creating a system where people will build up a lot of these hormones, and it is toxic to your health. It is really taxing on your liver. It's really taxing on your gut. It's really tasking on people with autoimmune diseases, mystery illnesses. When you got this crazy ass buildup of hormones and your liver is struggling against that, it exacerbates conditions that we call really commonly like fatty liver. So this is like a hellstorm we're brewing in these hormone pellet mills that is currently the standard of care.
Yeah, that's everything you just said. I loved it because the way I'll say it is, it's a balance. We're looking for what works for you, but it does seem like a lot of what I see is this excess just piling on more and more and more. And That's a conversation I frequently have in my practice. Like, do we really need that much?
Mm-mm.
Um,
No,
so next,
micro dosing. It's truly
yeah, because what I see in my own community, it is exactly what I hadn't thought of it as like a pellet meal, but I see just these mega doses, mega, and then when I
Mhm.
meet the person, they're still having a lot of symptoms. I think, well,
Yeah.
is a supplement helping you? So, Maggie, I did want to ask you as an autoimmune expert. I just happened to catch a sound clip on the news several days ago about the increasing incidence of autoimmune disease.
Oh yeah.
And then I started doing a search, and sure enough, kind of got confirmation of that. So, I wanted to get your opinion, your expert opinion, on what would be behind why we're seeing
Yeah.
more autoimmune disease.
There's a 7 to 11-fold increase over the last 60 years in autoimmune disease diagnosis. Some people are saying, oh, it's only because we're diagnosing them more, having more tests to diagnose them. That is not actually true. So they've even done studies where they've taken blood samples from people who were in the military like 60 years ago and blood samples from people in the military now. And the presence of the amount of antibodies, meaning your immune system attacking your own body, is up 7 to 11-fold. So it's not just we're diagnosing it better, is that we are triggering our immune system. And the basis is this, is that your immune system is there. Two couple main roles. One main role is to identify a germ outside your body. Says, you're a germ and I'm going to kill you. Second role, to identify in your body, you're a cancer cell. You don't belong here. I'm going to kill you. Third role is your immune system works as an allergic system. I'm allergic to you and I'm going to react and send histamines and raise histamines levels to trigger an allergic reaction. So those are some of the major roles of the immune system. And why has there been an increase 7 to 11-fold? And why is it predominantly also, why do women have at least a 4 or 5 times higher risk of having autoimmune diseases than men? Number one, we're going to go right back to what we just started talking about, is hormones. We are having more and more hormonal exposures, imbalances now than we ever have. And women are more susceptible to fluctuations in hormones than men. And women are having higher and bigger fluctuation levels than they ever did for a wide variety of reasons. So I'm going to say that hormonal change and flux, men, women, and children, are at an epidemic rise. And we are more ill equipped in dealing with it than ever because the financial pressures, the lack of education and doctors training that we have. So what I see is an epidemic of, for example, postpartum women going through menopause, suddenly coming down with these crazy health symptoms. And a lot of them don't even know it's autoimmune, and a lot of them don't ever even get diagnosed because, in my own experiences, 90% of autoimmune diseases we can't even diagnose because there's no blood test that exists.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you just have chronic fatigue, you just have brain fog, you just have pain or neuropathy. And holy hell, it's autoimmune.
Mm-hmm.
These hormone changes actually turn on autoimmune attack.
Mm-hmm.
Hormone changes turn on autoimmune attack. I want everybody to write that down. If you remember nothing else, hormone changes turn on autoimmune attack. So if you think about all the different times in your life, whether you're a woman, man, or a child, then you have vulnerable periods of time when that will turn on any sort of genetics that you have for autoimmune disease. And now, not only hormone changes, but infections. So if you have a super infection like COVID, long haul, if you have Epstein-Barr, if you have Lyme, there are super infections that will irritate your immune system and irritate it so much that it starts to attack. So we now know there's additional triggers, like the infectious triggers are also going up of these super infections. And then the third problem is the lack of our ability to detoxify our bodies, our lives, and our minds. So we build up toxic load, inflammation load in our body. We're becoming incubator and tanks for it. It's not just our earth and an environment that's getting toxic buildup. Our bodies are becoming reservoirs of toxicity, inflammation, and autoimmune attack.
Thank you so much for shedding some insight on that, because I know that it was something that I witnessed. And it's one of those sound bites you hear on the news. And I thought, whoa, wait a minute, it must be getting to be pretty big if it hit 5 o'clock news. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's something we'd all been witnessing. So I did want to ask you, what would you recommend as a first step if I am someone who's experiencing what you survived and I'm in the conventional medicine model and I'm not doing well or I'm getting sicker? What would you recommend is the first step I should do to start climbing out of this?
Yeah.
I really wanted your opinion, particularly because you were a physician who had to do this.
Yeah.
There's millions out there who aren't physicians. So what would be my first step to take
Yeah.
to get going in the right direction?
I love that question because a lot of people are out there and they are listening to me say some really big words. And I want to shrink it down to really small words that have big impact, because the predominant audience that is in your audience, in my audience as well, is, and that's were our symptoms. So really, when you're dealing, when struggling with symptoms like chronic fatigue, brain fog, pain, insomnia, anxiety, right? Weight gain, hair loss, right? Rashes, hives, increasing allergic reactions, bowel problems. Suddenly your life is starting to be, you're getting anxious, even going out or saying yes to things because you're wondering what's going to happen to your body. Like what it is I think people are losing, are at a place where they have very low amount of health certainty in themselves. Their body becomes unpredictable. They don't trust themselves or their own body anymore. This is the place of most people that I am talking to right now. And that's the reason why most of them are in your audience or listening to this podcast right now. It's these symptoms. Mm-hmm. And where people get stuck is that they get stuck in what's the diagnosis or who's the super special rare specialist that I can find that's going to fix all these symptoms. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that that's the opposite of what you should be doing, is to keep going and going to try to find a diagnosis, because the diagnosis doesn't present us. The diagnosis of these types of symptoms don't present a solution. When you're looking at complex, invisible, chronic symptoms, the most important thing is to know that there's multiple different, what's causing it. The number one question we should be asking is, what's causing this? What's causing it? Not what is the diagnosis? What can I name it as? What's causing this problem? Because if you know and you can figure out what the cause of this problem is, then you can fix it. If you don't know causation, knowing the name doesn't really matter. Like find the cause of it. And the number one step, first step that everybody here in the audience can take is education, which is what I did. We don't take an active educational approach to the fight for our lives. We don't. Mm-hmm. We take a passive, like we're cow to slaughter approach when it comes to health. Mm-hmm. I'm serious. Mm-hmm. Like we take sick care factory medicine as if like, oh, we're just going to keep going down that conveyor belt. You got to jump off that freaking belt because it is killing you. You're going to die as a result of it. They're not here to save you. Get off that freaking conveyor belt. The first step is awareness. I will not participate in this conveyor belt. Or I will participate in this conveyor belt to the degree that it serves me, meaning like if I need that doctor to order these tests, if I do really need that prescription, that's the conveyor belt route, right? And if that, whatever aspects of that that's helping your problem, great. But that is not your Messiah. Your Messiah is a different path. The different path is number one chapter in my book. You got to lead with curiosity. Why the heck is this happening? What is this? Who are the people that's saying something different about this? Who can I learn more from? Right? And so education is the first step, right? First action step that you take. You're listening to this podcast, you're getting educated and you're hearing an alternative point of view that doesn't exist anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this podcast, in the podcast notes right now in the comment section, interact. Say, tell Dr. Davis, like, what are some of the symptoms you're dealing with? What's going on? What are some of your questions? Maybe you should question. Maybe you think you know what the cause is and you should question it. Start a dialogue, because what happens is when you start connecting with people like Dr. Davis and myself, you start connecting with our audiences in the comment section, in our communities, you are going to start hearing different approaches to this problem. Example, this podcast, great resource to learn. Another example, my YouTube channel. I have at the time this recording, 1,400 videos on there on every topic you could imagine. And I joke about it and I'm like, maybe people should start asking about their hemorrhoids and there might be a video for that.
Your your blog is where I swam around in your blog.
Yeah.
'Cause that's after hours I like to read. I
Yeah.
love your blog. The blog article. I mean, in listeners in your show notes, there'll be links to every way to reach Dr.
Yeah.
Maggie. But I really enjoyed the blogs. Yeah.
Like Dr. Davis, you learned like the reason you're doing what you're doing right now and you have a smile on your face and you're passionate and prolific at what you're doing is because you went outside the box to learn something different than what you were medically trained to do.
Yeah.
Why
Well,
did you?
locally, I'm the witch doctor locally. It's a
Yeah,
joke here. So
I'm
yeah.
the witch doctor here everywhere.
Okay, I just don't have that hat on. But yeah.
I'm a proud witch.
The crystal carrying incense burning internist.
I have a lot of my patients and clients call me Magic Maggie. Same idea. Magic Maggie. Dr. Magic Maggie. And so for me, like, I mean, look at you. Like, what was the first step that you did to jump out of your lane?
Mhm. It was education. And I will
Yeah.
say, is I was reading your story, because it really, the first thing, and as I was reading through your blogs, watching videos, I thought, this woman graduated from UCLA, guys. I hope you understand what I'm saying, Maggie. I don't like to categorize people,
Mm.
but if anyone could contend with the medical system, it would be you. Does that, I mean, with your experience, you worked in
Yeah.
it, you were the medical system. And if you were screaming for help, and I thought, oh my gosh, if she couldn't do it, I was my own health, thank goodness. It wasn't so much my health. It was curiosity, and it was the same questions in my practice coming back and back. And then my natural curiosity that I started to listen to functional medicine podcasts
I
to
love that.
learn as a patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was curiosity. I never thought it would bleed over into my practice. I thought they would stay separate.
No, you can't. Once you see it, you can't
Yeah,
see it.
you can't unsee it. And that's when I assumed, just because patients were asking me 10 years before I even started to look, they started to ask me questions, and I would think, that's weird. I don't understand. Then I started, oh, this is what they're seeing. Oh my goodness, they're right. Maggie, can we just let the listeners know about your book? I
Well,
did
I'm
want to
actually
share
going
with
to do
them.
one more. I'm actually going to do one up that. I'm going to give all your listeners a copy of the book. So in the show notes, those of you guys that are made it through this part of the podcast already, I'm just letting you know up front. In the show notes, there's going to be a link where you guys can get a free copy of my book, because I sure as heck want you guys to read that first chapter called Leading with Curiosity.
8 out of the box, because that's where I think that would be a perfect place to start for
Yeah.
those
It's
that are,
eight
yeah.
It's 8 out of the box ways to transform your health. And it is a series because my intent is to create a series of 8 out of the box ways to solve any problem. And I think about it in that way. And I love the number 8. It's an infinity sign, because I think that when you grow people's minds, right? When you grow people's minds and you lead with curiosity, that growth is infinite. The potential is there, is infinite. So I couldn't have dreamed this future for myself 20 years ago when I was on that bathroom floor. But at the same time, through curiosity, education, and action steps, taking action over and over and over again, I'm here. I'm here. And so what I did with the book, 8 out of the box ways, was to put my 8 top best lessons that my clients always tell me, like, because we have, client interviews all the time. I love, like, don't just listen to me. We interview 2 to 4 clients every single week that are graduating from various programs that we have, so that they can share their experience. Because to me, like, success leaves a strategy. Not clues. Success is a strategy. And so I want successful people, and we interviewed them. And no matter what your health problem is, you go on my YouTube channel, POTS, dysautonomia, Sjogren's, you could have nearly died from Crohn's, Graves. I've seen it. I've done it all. I laugh at those. I laugh at danger. Right. So they're not hard. They're solvable problems. And I interview people who have successfully overcome them and share how they did that. Right. So in the book, I have tons of case studies from real people. I've worked with thousands. Right. So those case studies are great. And they are also the real people that are on my YouTube channel for interviews. I didn't think I was going to be an author. I always thought, I'm a good teacher. I'm really good on video. I can talk. I don't know if I could write. And once I made that decision to do that, because patients and clients were asking for it, I realized, you know what? I actually love to write.
Yes.
I had to keep editing it down. It's very long. I think it's 278 pages, somewhere around there. But I love to write. And I do think there's a lot of people who like to read. And on top of it,
That's my personal learning styles, reading. So you're reaching people like me. I would much
yeah,
rather read a book than, yes.
well, I'm about connection. And I recognize there are people who connect via reading.
Mhm.
So that's why the book was written. And I just finished recording the audiobook. So by the time this podcast is going to be released, I wouldn't be surprised if the audiobook on Audible will be available by then as well.
Oh,
And I narrated it.
nice. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And for my final question, because as I was reading your blogs, you did mention in several of your blogs recommendations you give for complementary therapies. Right before we
Oh,
started,
hell yeah.
now we're discussing Reiki. Can you share with us what your favorite complementary therapies are for
Yeah.
autoimmune patients?
My favorite movement is really important. Like, just so you guys know, every person that I work with, we talk about my mindset to mind growth curriculum. You have to grow your mind. And another sentence to write down is the body always follows the mind. So if you don't grow and work on your mind first, your body ain't following.
Mm-hmm.
And to quote Dr. Gabor Mate, and his concepts, the body like keeps score. So what happens is that he has associated, and I have as well, that certain specific types of thought patterns or types of trauma causes your mind to be in a pattern of self-destruction. And so what I've learned from myself having multiple autoimmune diseases with Hashimoto's, mixed connective tissue disorder, also neuralgia, a lot of neuropathy, neuralgias, autoimmune related. And my hormone thing, by the way, early menopause at the age of 36, all hormonal, all autoimmune.
Mm-hmm.
Autoimmune attack against my ovaries, my adrenals, yet an unnamed autoimmune disease that is rampant. So what I learned was that it's really critical to grow your mind. So when I think about other health strategies, to me, one of the most important health strategies is to strengthen your mind, challenge your mind, and grow it like you're a ninja, you're a warrior, you're a gladiator. Brene Brown has talked about how vulnerability and how I want to be the gladiator in the ring with the blood, sweat, tears, my foot on the ground, dust in the air, dust in my mouth, like spitting it out, to be like, I'd rather be with that person in the rink with that level of vulnerability because I'm playing. I'm playing. I'm not going to be a spectator. I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, personal growth work and development of yourself to create adaptability, flexibility, and curiosity and growth of your mind is the most number one health strategy. And the way that you start that is go read my book with the chapter. The first chapter is Lead with Curiosity. The last chapter is From Mindset to Mind Growth. Those two chapters bookend the book on purpose because you begin and you end with growing your mind. Number two, great authors like Brene Brown, right? Great podcast episodes here. I already saw in this channel about growing your mind, right? And read Dr. Gabor Mate's book and his books around autoimmunity and what thought patterns that are really common. For me, like learning that the number one thought pattern that people have, I'm going to have you guess, and I'm going to have the audience guess. What do you guys think is the number one thought pattern I have found in treating tens of thousands of autoimmune patients?
I'm going to say it's probably along the lines of, I can't get better. I'm always going to be sick.
Mm-hmm.
Is it something like that?
It's lack of forgiveness.
Like I did it to myself. This is my fault.
I can't forgive them or I can't forgive myself. I
Ah,
deserve to be punished.
yes. Yes. Okay.
Lack of forgiveness
Okay.
really is very high judgment, and it begs the other side of it, which is punishment.
Mm.
And lack of forgiveness of self is self-punishment, which feeds autoimmune disease like crazy. I mean, that could be a whole other podcast interview. But audience, if you guys want to follow up on how forgiveness and lack of forgiveness is the major trigger of autoimmune disease, I would love to explore that. But that is what I have found is people who have lack of forgiveness towards self or others are high judgment in their thought matrix, the thought patterns.
Okay.
And that high judgment demands justice, which is punishment.
I see that. That it
And
does. It does. Yeah. I need to rectify. I need a correction. Yeah.
I need justice.
Yeah.
And so, believe it or not, that translates also whatever lack of forgiveness you have towards others, it's the same you're doing to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you're demanding justice and punishment towards yourself.
Mm.
So you're actually fueling your autoimmune attack to kill yourself and hurt your body.
Wow. So that is such a powerful statement. I think that we could probably close there. Other than, let me ask you one more time, Maggie, for the listeners, what is the best way to find you? I think you're very easy to find, but if you could just verbally remind us
Yeah.
how to find you.
You could go to drmaggieyu.com. That's my website. You could go to Maggie UMD, which is my Instagram, which is my YouTube handle. You could just head those directions. In the show notes is my book. If you go on Amazon, look under Maggie UMD book, and it'll be 8 out of the box ways to transform your health. You can find me there. I'm about connection. So I want to connect and talk to you. That's what I have a whole team of people doing all day long, is talking and connecting with people. My highest value is connection. So for me, we also have a Facebook group community, which is Transform Your Health Naturally. If you're into Facebook and you want to be in our community, you could just request to join that group, Transform Your Health Naturally.
Your group is open to join. I did want to ask.
We have almost 100,000 people in it right now. We're at the time that's recording 95,000 people in there. Okay. I've had that Facebook group for almost 10 years at this point. Yes. And we have 3 full-time team members working in that group to actually connect, provide resources, and help people get educated. And that's the place for people to ask curious questions from other curious people who are open and learning.
Wonderful. So listeners, thank you so much for joining me. In your show notes, you'll see links to reach Dr. Maggie. You'll also see a link to sign up for my weekly newsletter if you have not. I usually recommend signing up for my newsletter because you'll get a copy of everything right to your phone. You don't have to rush to save it. And all of Dr. Maggie's links, including how to get a copy of her book, will be there. It has been such a blessing, Dr. Maggie, such a blessing for your energy to have you here. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on. You are a great interviewer. I love it. Thank you. And I'm excited to share this with my audience as well, your podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining during this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review. Also, you can check your show notes to find out how to get a copy of this and future episodes emailed directly to your inbox, available to listen to anytime. Finally, if you have questions or wish to connect to me, check your show notes to find out how we can get connected and find out how I can be of service to you.